We've got the 2 golf greens seeded and growing bentgrass, and now it's time to complete the final step of this giant do-it-yourself irrigation system. We're back at the backyard golf course build. This place looks so good with this nice, dark, rich topsoil spread everywhere. It's damp too. It's rained for about 24 hours. It's very cold, a little too cold to germinate grass seed, but it looks great with the bentgrass greens. They really contrast against that dark topsoil. You can see the shape, you can see the undulation we've got here. Looking pretty darn good. And the best part is the weather looks exceptional. The next 5 or 6 days are actually going to get back to room temperature t-shirt weather, which is not expected for this time of year here. I am super late. I'm above the 45th parallel, really late, mid-October, to be putting down Kentucky Bluegrass, but we put down 135 pounds in the backyard here. 45,000 square feet, hand raked it, rolled it in, and we've got most of our sprinklers going, but I have to get a few more in. That's our job today. I got to get a bit more irrigation because it's going to warm up here. The sun's going to come out, hopefully warm this soil enough to get some germination going. I have to say, I didn't think I'd make it this far this year. Everything kind of came together. We went into overtime, full speed. I definitely wanted to get the bentgrass golf greens going. I need them mature enough to get through winter. It's gonna be a tough winter here. I have to get some fungicide on these here in a few weeks. I've never grown golf greens before, so that's a little bit scary. The fairway and rough area, that was a massive job spreading all that topsoil. And it looks pretty good, honestly. It looks like I hired a professional to do it, so really proud of that. It was a lot of sweat, a lot of work, but it looks good now, and we put that Kentucky Bluegrass down. I love Kentucky Bluegrass, have it in the front yard. 2 years old, it's really come into its own. This is gonna be slow though. The problem with Kentucky Bluegrass, it takes so long to germinate. In optimum weather with these new kind of elite bluegrasses, you're still going to be probably 10 days with perfect temperature and moisture. My issue now, I can control the moisture with my sprinklers, but I cannot control that temperature. However, there's good temperature coming around the corner, so I want to make sure we're ready because this is my one chance. I have to get this grass mature enough too, because we could get into some deep freeze here within 4 weeks. So I'm really late on this. Need to make sure we get this stuff up and rolling. And it just stopped raining this morning, and you can see a couple of these high spots are already starting to dry out. So I need to make sure I get moisture on here, especially that hill. I've got a pretty big hill over there. Full sun all day facing south. So that's going to dry out quite quickly tomorrow. So let's get the sprinklers going. I have too many to put in, probably still 20. I'll show you how I've been doing that. So this is what I've left myself with. I've got the irrigation bin back out with my tools. Didn't really want to see that again. We had a big week or two earlier in the summer, 2,500 feet of pipe throughout this whole place, 41 pipes stubbed up, 4 rotors to go on. So a lot of work here. But that's the end step. I can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel on this one. So I have these I-25s from Hunter that are going to go on the pipe that's below ground here. This is just a temporary stub that I did with my flag on top so that we could run over these if we had to with dump trucks, tractors, skid steers, and that. I'm gonna dig down now, get to the bottom of my fitting, and start to fit this rotor on. This is what I need. This is my main feed, and it has a threaded elbow on there that I'm going to expose right now. There we go. Nice clean water, no dirt in there. That was the key. I taped the top just to keep the dirt out. So I want to put a little bit of this Teflon tape on. You can always get it apart. It's just going to provide friction and fill those threads a little bit more so that we can get a nice tight fit on. And then all we do is screw that rotor on. It's quite simple. Hand tighten, it doesn't have to be crazy tight. You can feel that Teflon tape. It's such a nice lubricant on those threads. This is the setup I went with, and I just made it up because I could get all this stuff pretty much at hardware stores. So my main water line is somewhere over here, and then I have the pipe that you can see. It's about this long, so I have some play in there to adjust. If I need more height adjustment, I can just dig back into the soil here and pull that pipe up even more. You can buy a swing arm. They sell swing arms for this, so it's like an elbowed swing arm. You can get a lot of motion and movement out of it. They were just another thing to buy, more pricey. I was worried about moving parts and having a problem long-term, where I know this is a fairly straightforward setup with a single pipe, 2 pipe clamps, and we were good to go. So I just went with my own, kind of made it up, and honestly, I'm halfway through these. It seems to be working pretty good. If you can guess your topsoil height and not have to move that pipe up and down too much, you're kind of laughing. It's working pretty good. So I'm going to backfill this now. And there it is, it looks good. If you take the time to make it flush to the soil, you're gonna have a lot of fun long-term not dealing with that thing. You don't want it too low, you don't want it too high. I'm going to mow this fairway probably 3/4 of an inch, maybe down to 5/8 of an inch. So I wanna make sure that rotor head is nice and low like it is. So that looks good. We've got a bunch more to do. The sun's out now for the next few days, so we gotta get the water on here. One tip I will give you on irrigation is do as much work as you can, not when you're down in the dirt working on the rotors. So I put all the nozzles in these ahead of time and set them. And I found that a lot easier to do at a table or a workbench, so much easier. So what you do is you get this, comes with them, a little adjustment tool. It sticks in the top like that. You turn it 90 degrees and now we can pull up on the rotor. So I've preloaded that gray nozzle. You can see I'm using most of these. They're 6 gallon a minute. They're mid-range. These are really big rotors and that's a mid-range one I'm going to start with. These have so much more force than the smaller ones, the residential PGPs that I use from Hunter. These are absolute monsters. They're really under a lot of tension. So the best thing you can buy, the best thing I ever bought in this entire project was this $2 part. And what it is a little collar stop that goes under the head of this, and I'll show you how it works. There's a lot of tension here. If you use a vise or a clamp or something, it would probably be a lot easier. I can just barely hold it between my legs. You don't want to get anything caught in there. And then you snap that around like that, and then that holds it up, and now we've got all day to take our key out and we can tighten down that one screw. So you can see that screw will come down, hold your nozzle in place, and as well that will set the beam. You can cut into the water beam with that screw and it will spread the water a little bit better. So really easy. This is a super nice part to have on it, and then it just releases like this and down it goes. So get yourself one of these if you're doing more than a couple sprinklers. They're well worth the $2. Before I send the soil samples away from the lawn and the topsoil for the golf course, I want to send away a compost sample. Here's a giant pumpkin. I've been growing this, doing a video, a standalone video on this from start to finish all year. We're gonna get frost tonight, so it's pretty much the end of the run here. But this plant is growing only in leaves and coffee grounds, and I've been making compost out of that leaves and coffee grounds for years. And this is a pile, a giant pile of finished compost. And I want to take a sample right now and we'll send that away with our topsoil. And I'm really interested to see how good or bad this compost is. I'm pretty sure it's really good, but I'd love to see some numbers on it. So I'm gonna take a sample right now. I forgot a shovel, as I usually do. I'm just gonna dig down, get rid of some of these vines. Look at these pumpkins just hanging here on the side of a hill of compost. This stuff is so good. Really interested to see how it comes back. I like to go around, grab a few different locations, and the texture on this compost when it's finished is just so nice. Black, soft and fluffy. And there's our compost sample. With the leaves and coffee ground mix of compost, it breaks down quickly because of the proper carbon and nitrogen ratio. The leaves are high in carbon and the coffee grounds are high in nitrogen. I have so much of this stuff that I'm thinking of renting a top dresser and spreading the compost all over the fairway of the golf course to boost the nutrient values. Over the last couple of summers, I've grown plants in here to test the potency of this compost, and I've grown a 600-pound pumpkin with nothing but water, no fertilizer, just water in this compost. So I think this stuff would be a great amendment to the topsoil on the golf course. You can see the incredibly high organic matter and CEC values from the soil test results. This stuff is just black gold. Up next, we lay down a lot of Kentucky Bluegrass sod.